From haunted houses to cursed artifacts, from whispers in the dark to battles you'll never read in scripture. This is the Unholy podcast, hosted by Doug Owen, author, investigator, and survivor of one of the most harrowing real-life hauntings ever documented. Each week, Doug pulls back the veil between this world and the next, sharing stories that aren't fiction, because he lived them. Prepare yourself. The silence is over.
Welcome back to the Unholy podcast. I'm author and paranormal investigator Doug Owen. I'll be your host. So tonight, let's talk about a couple of things. So people ask me a question all of the time. They ask it politely. They ask it cautiously. And sometimes they ask it as if they're afraid of the answer. They ask, did it stop? After the unholy silence, after everything that happened, after the investigations, the manifestations, the things that should not have been possible, did it stop? And the honest answer is, no, it did not stop. What happened instead is far more unsettling. Because when something truly violent ends, when the kind of paranormal activity that breaks people finally quiets down, you don't celebrate. You don't revel in joy. You don't announce it to the world that it's finally over. You wait. When you've lived through real, sustained, intelligent haunting, your nervous system doesn't reset just because the house goes quiet. You begin to catalog moments. Now, you stop panicking. You stop becoming afraid or terrified, and then you start observing. You start looking around, scanning your environment. And over time, something becomes very clear. This isn't chaos. It's continuity. And what I mean by that is, whatever followed me after the unholy silence incident didn't leave. It adapted. There is a calm after the battle. What I call the silence remains. But after stepping off what I can only describe as a spiritual battlefield, life did calm down. No more constant pressure. No more overwhelming dread. But the strange never went away. Instead, it became subtle. Smaller moments. Quieter events. But consistent. If I look back honestly over the years, something strange happens about, I would say once a month. And it's not always dramatic. And it's not always frightening. In fact, I haven't really been frightened until the climax of the Unholy Silence. You can read about that issue in my book. But it was always out of place. And that matters. For example, one night in August, just a couple of years ago, home working on a project. Nothing unusual. Just normal life. Late at night, I had music playing on a smart speaker, the Amazon one. You know the one. I won't say her name. I don't want her to interrupt my broadcast here. The song I was listening to stopped abruptly. No fade, no glitch, just stopped. I had asked the smart speaker what had happened. The smart speaker had no idea what was going on. I asked her to replay the song. Instead of the song I was listening to, she chose something else. She started playing Right Here Waiting by Richard Marx. A song I haven't heard in 30 years. A song I don't regularly play. But I took it as a strange sign. Now, by itself, that's not paranormal. But here's the thing investigators don't talk about enough. Context matters. Paranormal activity isn't about things happening. It's about meaningful interruption. Something stepped into your routine and says, I'm here. Something stepping into your routine and saying, I'm here. And that moment stuck with me because a few hours later, I understood. The 3 a.m. hour, I was working on the computer in my corner of my bedroom where my computer desk is set up. All of a sudden, there was a bang, and the house shook violently. Not a vibration, not a rumble. A bang. It felt like the house had been hit by a car. This impact was hard enough to knock pictures off of the wall. And it felt like it came right from behind my computer screen. I ran outside, of course, flashlight in hand. I checked everything out back. The air was still. There were no noises. There was nothing outside. No damage. No vehicle. No neighbors awake. Not even a dog barking in the distance. And here's something I've learned after decades of this work and dealing with the paranormal. Your body knows first. Before logic. Before skepticism. I've felt earthquakes. I've heard explosions. This wasn't environmental. When there's no cause, what's left is intent. Then there are the quiet things. Objects disappearing inside the house. And you may think that it's just misplaced, but they're not misplaced. This isn't something that you just forgot. It's not forgotten. It's not old age forgetting where you put your reading glasses. These things have been searched for repeatedly and by multiple people looking for an object that's lost. And later, the object returns, placed deliberately. This time it was on a perfectly made bed, a bed I and others had already checked. Placement is a statement. That's not confusion. That's communication. Then came the knocks. Always late at night. Always the same pattern. 4 knocks. I receive 4 knocks. 4 heavy knocks. Deliberate. At first I thought they may be pranksters knocking on the door. But once I was close enough to open the door immediately, and run outside, and there was nobody there. I answered the door. Quickly. Security cameras showed nothing. I have Blink security cameras from Amazon. Nothing. No approach, no retreat, nothing there. But 4 deliberate, loud knocks. Patterns matter. Repetition without chaos usually means one thing: a controlled signal. Something doesn't want entry. It wants acknowledgement. It wants my attention. It wants us to know that it is there. And what that is, I don't know. Is it an angel? Is it a demon? Is it the spirit of my mother? We just don't know. But that's why we're paranormal investigators. That's why we research. That's why we look into the unknown. One night I was cooking alone and standing at the stove. Behind me, I heard the light switch click, physically click off, as if somebody had flicked the switch with their fingers. Oh, of course, the lights went out. It was more annoying than it was frightening. It was as if a child was playing a prank and it just bothered you. Of course, I had to stop cooking and run back over to the switch, turn the light back on, shaking my head and muttering some curse words under my breath. But these things happen, and as you encounter the paranormal, and as often as I encounter the paranormal, it becomes normal. It becomes just more of an annoyance than it is something that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The switch flip was not electrical. It was mechanical. And I've heard electricians tell stories about how power surges can physically move the light switch, etc., but there was no surge. There was no electrical imbalance. It was just a flick of the switch, and it was loud enough so I heard what was going on. Another night, my girlfriend was sleeping here recently, and she felt the bed kick 3 times. Well, that woke her up, terrified. I was asleep next to her, passed out, non-moving. She sat up and waited. She thought maybe it was a dream. Maybe she had imagined it. Well, the bed, a few moments later, was kicked 3 more times at the base. She was terrified. Of course, she woke me up, telling me that this had just happened. I didn't feel it. It didn't wake me up. But certainly I believe her. These things happen. And here's the important distinction. In demonic infestations, lines are crossed aggressively. Sleep becomes terror. Physical contact becomes harm. Well, that didn't happen here. The interaction stopped once awareness was established. And once again, that matters. At a friend's house, J and R, we were sitting together. J was out of the room. R was there, telling a story. Multiple witnesses. From the top shelf in their garage, a 6-pack of Bounty paper towels launched outward. Not fell. Didn't tumble. Wasn't imbalanced or shaken. They launched a good 4 feet from the top shelf to the middle of the garage. No one was there. It traveled and hit the floor hard enough to expel one of the paper towel rolls. Gravity doesn't do that. People do. Entities do. When something happens in front of witnesses, the narrative changes. And that moment wasn't frightening. It was validating. We had also encountered bobby pins, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but bobby pins that just appear on a wiped-down table. The same night, the same house, the same garage. The bobby pin previous visits were left in front of the refrigerator. They were picked up and thrown away because we discussed the pattern of them reappearing. Now, on the Queen Mary, during my investigation on St. Patrick's Day in 2020, I was alone on the ship, just me and my 7 family members. We were the only ones to tour that day because of COVID. We were given special access to the ship. Now, I stopped to use the restroom near the bow of the ship, and I noticed the faucet was running in the men's room. Well, I shut it off without thinking. Later, I told the rest of my family that, there must be some other kids on the ship because the faucet was left on, or somebody who didn't have any manners. And they instantly chimed up and they told me that that is a known spiritual phenomenon on the ship, that the spirits love to play with the faucets and turn the water on. That's when it hit me. Sometimes it's not the location, it's the person. So what is this? What this is, and isn't, it doesn't feel demonic. There's no oppression, no fear, no malice. It feels almost mischievous, prankster-like, curious, almost conversational. And that's more unsettling than violence, because it means something is still paying attention, still watching, still trying to get my attention. Now, whether it is the same something that terrorized me in my previous home during the incidents described in the Unholy silence remains unclear. I don't know what these are. And again, that is why we investigate. That's why we research. That's why we have all of the tools of the trade to investigate, to measure, to record, to document. That is our job. That is our business. To investigate the unknown, the paranormal. And every paranormal investigator that I know has been touched by the paranormal in one way or another, or else they wouldn't be paranormal investigators. If you look for something, chances are you're going to find it. When I started this whole venture, I wasn't looking for paranormal entities. They found me. And for whatever reason, decided to terrorize and upset my life, turn it upside down, to fracture my belief and my faith, trying to destroy it, until I stepped off the battlefield. But I have seen a young girl jumping rope in a plaid dress right across the hallway disappear into my kitchen sink. These things don't feel evil. They don't feel violent. They don't scare me. And I don't feel hunted. I don't feel threatened. But I don't feel alone either. I always feel like there's something around here. And this led me to procure and curate haunted and cursed artifacts, which I have for sale and resale and purchase and investigate, trying to understand what these things are. Are they simply the spirits of loved ones past? Are they alternate versions of ourselves from another dimension? Is it supernatural cosmic energy caused by the Higgs boson super collider? Black hole? We just don't know. But that's why we investigate. So the haunting didn't really end, to answer the original question. It just evolved. And silence doesn't mean absence, as you well know. As I have said repeatedly, silence doesn't mean absence. If you want the full story about that, you can find the Unholy Silence. It's available now, everywhere. The truth is, this story isn't finished. I will have a sequel to The Unholy Silence coming out, as I continue to encounter supernatural and paranormal entities and experiences, and continue my investigation to find the truth. I still want to know what terrorized me and my family, and continues to plague me. As I mentioned, a few months ago I found 4 bobby pins in the bottom of my shower, arranged in a star pattern. I cannot imagine where they would have come from. No one else was here, and at the time I didn't have a live-in girlfriend or even a girlfriend that visited who wore bobby pins. No one else in the house, and of course I clean my shower regularly and take showers. So after the bobby pin incident, I began to encounter bobby pins wherever I went, as far as Reno, Nevada, on the counter at the Nugget Hotel and Casino. Bobby pin was there. At a friend's house, in front of the refrigerator, the bobby pin. They had wiped down a table for us out in the garage where we could put our refreshments and cigarettes. Bobby pin appeared after the paper towels were launched. At another friend's house outside on their outdoor bar, a bobby pin appeared. On my dresser just last week, going for my wallet and sunglasses and keys, getting ready to go out, a bobby pin appeared on my dresser. I have no idea where these come from, but they are definitely trying to communicate something to me. What it is, nobody knows. And I may never know the answer to it, but I do know one thing. It is paranormal in nature. It is supernatural. Now, what that means, that it is beyond my understanding, beyond my technology to really record and understand what's happening. How these things get placed there, I have no idea. And usually when these things happen, it is silent. There is no noise. Every spectral entity I have encountered doesn't make noise. When they perform their actions, there is no noise. Henceforth, the title of my book, The Unholy Silence. And you can look for my upcoming book, a sequel to The Unholy Silence. I have yet to name it, but it will be available soon. I'm working on that to let readers know that I have continued my journey into the paranormal. You can find all of this information here at my website, authorDougOwen.com, and you can also Google my name, Author Doug Owen, and you'll be able to see everywhere that you can purchase The Unholy Silence. So until next time, beware, be aware, and remember, sometimes the silence is the most terrifying thing.
You've just heard another chilling chapter of the Unholy podcast, hosted by Doug Owen, author, investigator, and witness to the things most fear to name. For more real stories, cursed objects, and exclusive content, step deeper into the dark at authordugowen.com. Subscribe, share, and remember, some silences aren't empty, they're waiting. The Unholy podcast and author Doug Owen can now be heard on the ParaX radio network.